So wouldn't you really want to know if you weren't doing things right? I mean, maybe there'd be like an obvious answer. Like if you're on the golf course and you're hitting the ball and it's going into the woods, you know there's something wrong. If you shoot the jumper and it's an air ball, you know there's something wrong. But what about with parenting? What about when your kids, when something's happening that doesn't feel right and you feel like suddenly you're out of control? Wouldn't it be great to know what's in your control? And today, our guest, Jocelyn Sokol, like this is her expertise. She is amazing. She's got these answers for us. And today, if you'll stay with us, you're going to find out some things that can only help you in the most important leadership job you'll ever have in your life, being a parent. So what's the key? And today, it'll all happen right here, right now on the R Zone. When you put your head on that pillow tonight, you've got one question. Are you glad you did, or do you wish you had?
The R Zone with Coach Jim Stroker.
We've all had people along the way in life who make a lasting impression. For me, one of those people was my high school basketball coach, Jim Stroker. He's coached hundreds of us teenage boys over the years and raised three of the most remarkable kids you'll ever meet.
I have coached hundreds of thousands of games right on these fields right here. But there's only one game that truly counts, and that game is your life. And you will be measured in that game by how you respond. E plus R equal O. The events, many of which are out of your control, plus your response, which is 100% on you, will equal the outcome. And now we're about to lean in on the power of your response. The R Zone. This is a podcast to share conversations on our own hero's journey. These are stories that have shaped my life and the mindset I hope that will help shape yours. This is coaching for life. It's not where we've been. It's all about where we're going. The R Zone is the space between stimulus and response. The R Zone is where you have the power to choose your response.
And now, join Jim Stroker in the R Zone.
Hey, welcome to the R Zone. I am Coach Jim Stroker, life coach, leadership trainer, and motivational speaker. And today, like this is the day, we welcome Jocelyn Sokol. And Jocelyn, amongst other things, is a certified personal development coach and a certified parenting coach. So I don't know, like I just have a funny feeling like every athlete, every leader, every musician, artist, anybody at the top of their field needs a coach. And coaches can give you feedback. But Jocelyn's got some information, some really unique information about a subject that's really leaving us all a little bit befuddled. How to handle kids today. So Jocelyn, we welcome you here to the R Zone. And we're so excited about some of the really neat philosophical ideas you've developed through all your training. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing and your coaching.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. Thank you for asking me to come. Yeah, I mean, I think sort of how I came to this might be relevant in that I started as a personal development coach and then, have my own kids, have so many clients who are parents, and that was, one of the challenges they were experiencing. And basically, parent coaching is so similar to personal development coaching because that's really what I believe the answer is. Instead of us feeling, there's something going on with my child, they need to do something different, somebody, can you fix my child? It's more, what can we do to help them? And typically, it's our own personal development.
Yeah, so it's really like a paradox, isn't it? It's really a tricky thing. Like, it feels like they're the problem, but maybe not. Maybe to really fix it, we've got to fix ourselves first. Is that right? Yeah,
I mean, just also to help create an environment in which they can thrive. And often our fears, our worries, our unresolved issues are in the room with us when our kids are going through something. and triggering to us. And if we can move through those things and heal those things in ourselves, we can support them in the best way possible.
Yeah. So one of the things you've shared with me is, the stereotypical, and this is old leadership skills, right? Like if something's going wrong in your company business or in your classroom, you might verbally lash out at them and scare them with fear. Cut it out. Don't do that. This is wrong. You shouldn't. And that's kind of a way we led, like lead by fear, right? And what I think you found out that doesn't necessarily work so well with kids, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't work best, and it doesn't have sustainability. So sometimes, depending on the child, with younger children, it can kind of work for a while, and then once they hit teens and older, which is what my primary focus is, older teens or adult children, it doesn't really work anymore. Yeah. And basically, it's really our own fear coming up and our own anxious feelings around what they're doing that come up. And if we can regulate our emotions around it, we can make them feel that it's safe to have whatever feelings they're having.
I love that. So the answer is not yell, scream, try to say, look, if you do it again, I'm going to take your phone away and you're not going to go to grandma's house this weekend. If you do it again, like it's not that, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the alternative, and how would I strategize differently and handle a situation with a defiant teenager?
Yeah, I mean, when your children is being defiant, you have to think of it like an iceberg is one thing that is said. So with an iceberg, you see a little something on top of the water. That's the behavior, that's the symptom. And under it is the entire big, huge iceberg. And parents, we focus on the behavior, or this little top coming out of the water. And so we never really help get to the root.
Yeah, so it's tough. So one of the things you talked about, which I love, is the park bench. Mm-hmm. And sometimes your kids, and I've got 5 grandchildren now, so we've got these little, even 3-4-year-olds that are going like, no, we don't want to do it. We're not doing this. We're doing that. And instead of the yelling part, you talk about the park bench. Tell us about the park bench.
Yeah, so sitting on the bench is actually something that Dr. Becky Kennedy coined, but it really is helpful, that visual, because what it means is no matter what is happening with our child, if we were to be able to sit on the bench with them in that feeling, that's the key. Yeah. So we coin it as, or not coin it, we view it as defiant. Yeah. If we were to take that label off and just, my child's having a hard time right now, and then just sit with them in it, this is really difficult for you, you seem angry, you're having a hard time. That's what helps them feel seen. When we don't do that for our kids, then they have to escalate. They have to up the ante because they're really screaming for us to understand them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm stereotyping, but as males, we love to fix things. Now, I'm not necessarily a good fix-it guy, but I've got answers for you. Mm-hmm. And, as parents, we always want to come and fix their problems, mm-hmm. rather than just be there and listen. So how do you feel about that? Like, isn't it my job to advise my children? Isn't that my ultimate job, or not?
No. But yes, that is the issue. And, I think, for me as a parent, it's something that I do think was the natural instinct, was to try to fix, was to try to take potential pain away. But we're really doing them a disservice. But I think it's a lifelong pursuit for a parent to work at that. I don't think it's you get to a point and you just never do that, because it also then is subtle, and often I'll think I'm not outwardly trying to fix a problem, but in a sneaky way I am. So, yeah.
And of course, you've mentioned this before, is when parents lose their composure. Mm-hmm. When parents, reach that bubbling point where it's like, that's it, I've had it, enough, blah, 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 blah. What are we teaching our kids? What are we modeling for them about when the environment gets really rugged, when it gets really hostile around here, daddy blows up, daddy loses it. because that's the only way. I don't have a strategy. I've lost control. So how do you feel about that, and why is it so important to try to stay away from that behavior?
Well, exactly what you said is we're modeling for them what we don't want to see in them. So if our child has an outburst and then we receive that with an outburst, it's said that an escalated parent can never de-escalate an escalated child. And it really is true, but it's challenging, and we're going to make mistakes in that way as parents, and that's okay too. Kids don't need a perfect parent.
Right. So in the old days when we were growing up and I was teaching, like the biggest thing we were worried about was drugs and alcohol. I mean, that was the primary addiction, and that was the big problem. But now there's a new drug on the street. There's a new addictive drug, and I'm being a wise guy, called the phone, right? Which is quite honestly the most addictive of all, and potentially just as dangerous. And again, I'm not, but how do we cope now with phones, and how do you hold those boundaries, create those standards, and really, hold kids to them, and why is it important?
Yeah, I mean, I think that parents have to, again, manage their own unresolved issues of what if I don't connect? What if I'm not socially accepted? What if I feel distant from my friends? And so then when our child, at night wants to have their phone in their room and says, well, this is when everybody's talking at night, it's really hard for parents to make that boundary. And they have to understand you gain and you lose. So maybe that child will be left out of something in that moment, but there's such a reward at the end of the day, and at what cost are these nighttime conversations? I do think a lot of kids today are sleep deprived because of these phones in their rooms. So a hard line definitely needs to start with no phones in the room, which should be just baked in the cake, but it isn't.
Yeah, tough. And of course, you mentioned, like, at dinner or anytime we're together as a group, maybe the most important person not to be on their phone is you.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, you have to say, look, this is a team deal. I mean, here's the rules of our club. They're all going in the bucket over here, even mine, right? And but I get no. We all are going to do that, right? Because I think that's so. So tell me about leading by example and how important that is.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that as a household, it should be our family puts our phones, in chargers in the kitchen when we go to sleep at night, and it is a team effort. And just like you said, if we're on the phone when we're telling our kids not to be, they're not going to receive the message in the same way. And I definitely have been at fault for doing that. My kids would tell you. So yeah.
So one of the things that I've seen you do, which is just so effective, and I like to use the term huddle up. And huddle up is obviously a sports term, but used in the family environment with like, everybody, come on, drop everything right now, right? Come on, huddle up. We're going to be in a team meeting, right? And there's all kinds of fun things you can do in there. But one of the things you've done in your home, and I know you profess as a coach, is to create the standards, create the values, create the behaviors that we all agree to in this home, and have the kids be part of that agreement and have them have their input be part of it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think you're referring to something we spoke about, that Brené Brown had an exercise that my husband and I did with our kids when they were pretty young, where everyone would draw a house, and then they would write what phrases that we say to each other belong in our house and what phrases belong outside of the house. And it was really a wonderful thing to do together. I remember one of them said teasing was outside of the house and teasing in a good-natured way was inside of the house, and just making that distinction. And, not that we always all followed all the rules, but it was meaningful. And my kids actually framed it for me a few years after, which I'm sure they did it partly just to make me feel good, but it worked.
Yeah, so the funny thing is, like all parents, and you correct me if I'm wrong, like there's not one parent that doesn't have challenges, right? I mean, I don't care who you are. You don't circumvent. It seems like, oh boy, you got the perfect house, perfect car, perfect boat. I mean, you got challenges, right? And the way you look at those challenges, the way you perceive them, is a mindset or framework that you bring in a little bit differently. Rather than look at them as obstacles, I mean, really look at them in a different way. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's really helpful to be able to do that is when your child, even if it's one of these things like they yell, I hate you, or speak, terribly disrespectfully because they're upset about something, to ask ourselves, what's the most generous explanation I can give for my child? So the first thing that comes up when they say, I hate you, is basically, I'm a bad parent, I'm bringing up a disrespectful person, and then the anxiety of they're going to be, 30 and yelling at their wife or their husband. And really what we want to do is dial that down and really say, what's the most generous explanation? Typically it would be, they're really upset right now. Yeah. And so what they don't need is to be screamed at, and now you're punished, and now go away from me in a timeout or that type of thing. What they really need is, again, just sit on the bench with them like, you're really upset right now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, I can't tell you how many people that I've said, call Jocelyn. I'd love Jocelyn to coach you. And you've done that with a million people, because I think your story is so interesting. Jocelyn, you worked in the corporate world, right? Had a great job and all that, then became a mom, correct?
No.
No, okay. So incorrect? So tell me more then.
Yeah, I mean, I guess way back when, before I was pregnant, I worked in the corporate world. It was so long ago that I shouldn't have said it that way, but it was a creative aspect in the corporate world. But yeah.
You keep going.
No, you go ahead.
No, so then you did something interesting, right? Like you became interested in your own personal development. Mm-hmm. Like you were intrigued by listening to people and making yourself the best person you could be. And then you became tremendously intrigued by how to deal with your kids. Mm-hmm. And so you took this curiosity, this love or interest, and you transmitted it or transmuted it into a career, right? So now this is what you do for a living. You study, you gain knowledge, and then you help other people. And I think we've talked about this. It's such a cool job, and quite frankly, you're the best that I've ever seen at it. You really are, because you've got that one super sauce or that one superpower. Your listening skills are like out of sight. You're really good at it. And then what you say really seems to resonate. So tell us a little bit, and then I won't bring in the hero's journey yet, because I think it blends in here. But tell us about like that. You're scratching your own itch, as they say, right? And you turned it into a career. And how does it feel to help people work through these things?
Yeah, I mean, it feels amazing. I think that I learned so much. I made so many mistakes that for that to be able to help other people, for me to, acknowledge that and therefore no judgment whatsoever, because I was you and still am at times. And so yeah, I do find that really rewarding. And yeah, thank you for all the referrals.
That's great. What's your favorite book right now on parenting?
Favorite book on parenting? I would say it's not on parenting, but most recently I've revisited The Four Agreements. And as simple and basic as it is, I think it really applies to everything, but certainly to parenting.
Okay. And what's the biggest thing that is the most confusing thing that parents do, that if you are coaching, you go, no, you're doing this all wrong? What do you see most frequently that parents do by nature and think they're doing a good job that they probably shouldn't be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think not really having the true goal that they have for their child in mind. So that is why I love what I do, because it's very personalized, it's unique, it's individualized. there's two parents, whatever conditioning they're bringing to the family, the personality of the child, the birth order. There's so much. So it really is specific to each family, the plan that we put in place to help them. But in essence, to answer, what is the thing that I see so much, and it's really having a clear understanding of what your goal is. So a question that can be asked is, when your child knocks on your door and they're 25, what do you want to see? And most often people will say to me, someone independent, responsible, confident. Well, confidence comes from feeling that we can take care of ourselves. And independence, responsibility, it doesn't just happen. We have to treat them that way. So if we're, micromanaging what they're doing, making them do their homework, once they're of an age that responsibility should be handed to them, how do we expect them to walk in independent, responsible, confident? So there is sort of something counterintuitive. We think we're helping them and we're really hurting them.
Yeah, interesting. So we live in an interesting community. Ridgewood is a great place. I've lived here all my life. And, this Ridgewood's been the most supportive, caring, loving people in the world. But we're also a community where there's a push, to the top. Like there is this underground, handshake of, you're going to be the happiest person in the world if you go to the best college, if you're the captain of the lacrosse team, if you get straight A's, if you reach all these special things, you'll be happy. And there's a big push, and it's a lot of pressure on kids to really, keep up with whatever we think we're chasing. And I know you have some interesting ideas on whether you think happiness really comes from, necessarily going to the best college, getting the best job. I mean, is that where happiness comes from?
Yeah, I would say no, and I think we've really been harming our kids in general in society, that it feels that they always have to be striving, and it's just getting younger and younger. Now sports are starting at, the last I checked, they were starting at about age 4. I shudder to think if it's even earlier now. And then in terms of school, by 5th grade, the track they're in will have an impact on where the track in middle school and then the track in high school. And then I do remember when my kids went to college thinking that was done, and then somebody saying, so what's the internship that your child might get to have an impact on what job they get, and then once they're in that job, what promotion they get, and it never ends, and they'll never feel that fulfillment when striving for more is such a part of our culture.
Yeah. It's so interesting. And, my expertise is more in the sports world. And it's so interesting to watch parents coaching their kids. Now, anyone who's ever been an athlete or a musician or an artist, that the ultimate state is either flow state or being in the pocket or being in the zone, right? And that's when you're locked in, baby, and you're in another state. And that's where your goal is to get there. And the worst thing that anyone can do when you're in that state is to try to coach you. Yeah. That's the worst thing. Hey, Johnny, don't forget to hold the bat up. Dad, I just focusing on the pitch. Johnny, this time, look. Billy, come on, I'm right here. Grandma's here. Smile. Isn't it the worst thing you can do? If you really, like during practice, it's okay to say, do this, do that. But once they're trying to put it into play, let them go. Keep your mouth shut. And the worst thing you can do, and this, is after the game is over, come on over. Let's review the game in the car. And that seems to be the number one reason why kids quit sports. To be overcoaching kids when they get a chance to try to do something that's really hard. We want to help them during that experience. It's not really the right time to do it, is it?
Yeah, no, I think what we want to do with kids is have them trust that we're there to support them and, again, sit next to them, not tell them what to do, fix things, solve things, control things. And so that is something that it's hard to navigate, because there is still space to offer, thoughts, offer feelings, and we can create that with them, and we can get them to trust that that's where we're coming from, and then they will be so much more open to our feedback.
Last night, and I don't want to, I was with my 2-year, 9 months grandson, right? Mm-hmm. Jesse, come on, we're going to go to Squires now for dinner. I don't want to go. Mm-hmm. Jess, come on, we're going to Squires. We're going with Grandpa. I'm not in the mood. I'm not in the mood. I mean, Jesse, get in the mood. Come on. So I'm kind of like being a good guy and being like a quarterback in the pocket, really relaxed until, there's a part of me that wants to go, hey, Jesse, get in the car, will ya? Mm-hmm. And Jesse's like, no, I'm not going. Not going. And in the old days, it seemed like my mom had a strap in the house, and she just grabbed that strap. She never hit us. We were like, all right, I'll go. And in these days, we can't be so. Like, what do you do with teenagers that are basically going, no, I'm not doing what you want me to do, and there's nothing that you can do about it. So get out of my room, asshole. Get out of my room. What happens then?
Well, I think I'll speak to the example with Jesse, because that is where it starts, and then we can also speak to how to handle with older kids. But in terms of that, what you said was when you said let's go and he said no, you said something like, but come on, it'll be fun, you'll enjoy. So what you missed was the sitting on the bench. So the sitting on the bench is like, oh, you don't feel like going. And then he feels seen and understood. It's okay to feel that feeling. He doesn't
so good.
He doesn't have to want to go. You're going to hold your boundary that he will be going, but don't skip the step of you really don't feel like going. Sometimes I don't feel like doing things. I get it. What's something that we can do? Is there a coloring book we can bring? What if we, after we order, we go outside and we look for birds, whatever you want to say, but something that can kind of help him to feel seen and heard.
So great. So suddenly Jesse's grandma called on the phone and she said, Jesse, I heard you're going to Squires. He goes, I'm not in the mood. She goes, why don't you get in the car and call Pippi, my dog? And all of a sudden, you walk right out the door. So, I mean, these little strategic changes go away from do it, you got to do it, and just blending in, right? What about that teenager that's like, go on, get out of here, and they may even say a curse word?
Yeah, I mean, with that, when we try to speak to our child when they're escalated, it will never go well. And if we, in turn, get escalated, it will never go well. So, to be honest, in that situation, walk away.
Just walk away.
And then revisit it later. What was happening? What was going on? What were you feeling? And, if there's a boundary like you cursed at me, I think you did, then, we don't do that in this family. We don't curse at each other. Yeah. And that is not okay to do. But I understand what you were feeling behind it.
Yeah. How much is it helpful to try to remember what it was like to be their age? It's hard to remember, especially when you're, almost near the end of the fourth quarter or overtime, to think what it was. I was just talking to sixth graders at GW, and I said, I'll never forget being in that sixth grade, but I think I did forget. So what was it like for us that we can try to remember how confusing it was or how much we wanted to please others? Mm-hmm. Is there anything there that...
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question and a great tool to bring in to imagine what it was like. And often, because what's under it for us are things that are unresolved within us, we wish we did better in school or something like that. So then our child doesn't hand in a paper and we fly off the handle. If we thought about when we were that age, we might recognize sometimes I didn't hand in a paper either, and what might have been behind that, and talk to the child about what might have been behind that. Yeah. So I think that's a great tool.
I love that. So talk to me about two different things that I love to talk about, and I know you've got an interesting take on them. One is gratitude, and the second is being kind, and just going out of your way to do nice things for other people. and how important emotional intelligence is. But let's talk about gratitude and what you've read about gratitude. And I know you practice it and almost believe in manifestation. So tell me a little about your take on gratitude.
Yeah, I mean, I think how it applies to parenting is often, the first thing I do with clients is I get out a piece of paper, have them draw a line down the middle, and on the left it says going well, on the right it says could be better. And so they're coming to me, something's going on with their child, things are not going well, and I'll say, what can we put on this left side? What's going well? And so often they say nothing. And then I say, okay, so we can go to the could be better category. And they start to say what could be better. We start to write it down. And then they'll say something like, he never talks to me. Although the other day he did talk to me when we went and drove to his soccer game. Oh, then let's put that on the going well side. Before you know it, both sides are filled. And then I'll ask them, what are you noticing? And they'll say, well, there are a lot of things that are going well. Gratitude. And that really is an important component. We shouldn't label our children like, bad or something, that is a problem to be fixed. And they're complex just like we are. Yeah. And often there's a lot we can focus on that is going well.
Right. And what about making an effort to do things outside of themselves and start to develop a sense of empathy?
Yeah, I mean, that's always an amazing thing to do, and volunteering is wonderful for that reason. Yeah. Helps us get outside of ourselves often. When people are having issues, it's constantly thinking about what's going wrong with me, and if they help someone else, it's a time to let that go.
Yeah. So one of the things we're both really intrigued by, and I'd love our listeners maybe to just kind of peek in and go under the hood here on Joseph Campbell. And he offers so many great philosophical lessons that to me have really resonated in my life, and I know for Jocelyn as well. And Joseph Campbell obviously is a mythologist and teacher and just an amazing person who really developed this hero's journey. So tell me about your take of the hero's journey and maybe how it relates to parenting.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just the arc in the hero's journey, which was found in all stories ever told, including up to now, is these different phases that Joseph Campbell studied and was able to name that he felt are actually embedded in the human psyche, meaning we're meant to have challenges and we're meant to experience them in a certain way. Yeah. And so, in essence, they're supposed to happen. And that, I think, for parents, for me in my own life, for me when my kids have gone through things that were hard for them, is one of the hardest things because we just wish it would go away. But what we need to do is really understand, no, this is supposed to be happening for growth. And it really is the only time we grow. We don't really grow when everything's going perfectly for the most part.
That's great. So are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Probably a combination.
Oh, what do you mean a combination? Tell me more.
I think I get my energy both from others and from being alone. So that definition of, being an introvert is that you get energy from being by yourself, or an extrovert, you get energized by other people.
Okay, so
I sort of am the, social battery dies and then I.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
How about you?
Oh, thank you for asking. I'm a blend too.
Okay.
By nature, a pure introvert.
Yeah.
I mean, I recover by myself.
Yeah.
I love doing this, but then after this is over, I'm going to the Russian spa and sit in the cold plunge by myself, not with 3 other people. Mm-hmm. So I like that. But recognizing your kids and their different interests and the things that they have natural inclinations to do, and allowing them to run with that. And, with Jake and Allie, when they were injured, their lives became very different. And suddenly they couldn't do what some of the things they could do before. But we try to find that one thing that they could really love and I, for their confidence level, I think, get good at. So how important do you think it is to, try to watch closely at what kids really love themselves, not what you love them to love, and then run with that and give them more opportunities in that area?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a wonderful intention to set for parents, and often those things will present themselves. With some kids, they might not present till later, or it might be that they, in that moment, care more about what their friends are doing. And so even if they were to be able to cultivate an interest in something, it might not come till later in life. And that's why I think what's most important today is for kids to be given praise for who they are more than what they do. Yeah. And I think there's so much emphasis on what they do. Young kids, I met a neighbor the other day who said she has two kids, two boys. They play hockey and baseball. And it was just interesting, no disrespect, but it was just interesting that was such a part, that identity was so closely connected to her. And typically we would never say, two boys and, they're so kind to others. I mean, that would be corny anyway, but it wouldn't even come into the mind as the first description. Yeah.
I've got 3 children, all that have children, and it seems from the perimeter it's getting harder and harder to parent. I don't know, maybe because, I don't know why, but do you think overall it's getting more difficult? And if you do, why? I guess that's the question.
Yeah. Possibly. I think, more people are having more things that they worry about, more things they're anxious about. And I think they feel a heavier responsibility of protecting their children. Or, so many parents say to me, they hear that they want to have more quality family time, but then they hear that, other kids are enrolled in this program or that program and worried they're somehow going to be doing their child a disservice if they're not also in those things. So I think it does feel harder. Do I believe in actuality it is? I like to think it isn't. And I do think it's one of those things that we talked about years ago. What if it was easy? I do think parenting in the way that will best support our children is actually making it easier. We don't have to take that responsibility. To help them the most is to hand over that ball of responsibility, and them then controlling and creating their own lives is what gives them confidence and self-esteem.
That's great. So I have one last little area that's really messy. It's messy because you and I have messed in here before, because I know we have a little bit of friction with our beliefs, and it's all about feelings, and which we're all kind of aware. We all aware now of the most important thing is become aware of how you feel. Yeah, and this is very important, right? To try to go inside and feel your body, feel what sensations are occurring, what you're feeling, what your thoughts are, and then try to identify correctly what those feelings are, which we've talked about, right? And identify them, but at some point, and along with that, realize what's triggering those feelings. Now comes the regulation part, possibly, right? And here's our little friction here. So I don't feel like doing it, but I can't let my feelings dictate my actions. I don't feel like it, but it's Grandma's birthday and she's 92 and I have no choice. I've got to do it. I don't feel like studying now because I'm not in the mood and it's 8:00 and I want to listen to my phone. I don't feel like it. I hear a lot, and I know we want to be subtle and be aware of that. But how do we teach kids? You can't always do what you feel like. or go take that wherever you want. I was a bad lead up, but whatever.
No, it wasn't bad. Yeah, I mean, the first part of what I thought you might be going to is avoiding feelings. And that, again, is that same concept of meeting them where they are. Yeah. And I think what we teach our children wrongly, and I would say this is maybe the biggest thing that I learned later after my kids were already much older, but is we as parents try to take these feelings away, these feelings of feeling left out, feeling sad, feeling angry, feeling all those things, and we send them the message, those feelings are not safe to have. Yeah. And so then they try to create a life without them, and that's impossible. And the biggest thing we can do for them is, if they're angry, I'm not scared that you're angry. I can be with that, so that they can be with that and then move through the feeling, rather than there's something wrong with you that you're angry right now. Yeah. You better go off to your room by yourself. Yeah. I'm going to withdraw my love from you, basically. That sends a message of, oh, this is bad to have. And so, again, we want to create that all feelings are safe to have.
I love it. Great. So success is blank.
Success is blank. What do you mean, like success
how would
in
you
parenting
define,
or just in general?
Yeah, let's call parenting success.
A fulfilled child, I would say. And to me, that distinction is not happy child. That's another mistake we make, because happiness comes and goes, and fulfillment is more being able to be in touch with who you are in this world and what's meaningful to you, and honoring those things that are valuable to you.
I love it. The worst advice you've ever been given as a parent?
The worst advice I've ever been given. I guess I feel bad to throw her under the bus, but from my mom, make your kids eat everything off their plate.
Everything off their plate. It's
yeah. My mother once said to my daughter, who didn't finish something she made for her, I'm very disappointed in you.
Very disappointed. Well, that's a good. So
How about you?
Worst advice I've ever been given? Just be so. Make everything so easy. I wasn't give my mom, after my dad died when I was 9, she just loved me so much. She made everything so easy for me. She really did. She covered me all the time, and I was a total wreck. Mm-hmm. When I went to college, I was like, the room was a mess. I couldn't function. So she didn't tell me that, and she only gave me that through love. Yeah. But it really screwed me up for a long time, and I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah. Well, it's exactly what we're talking about today. Yeah. As much as she did the best she could, but her doing everything for you made you then, when you were out on your own, not trust in yourself, and that is one of the most important things we can.
Are you a hugger or a handshaker? Or are you I love you or I like you? What are you like?
I would say I'm a hugger more than a handshaker. Okay. Yeah. How about you?
Oh, I'm definitely a hugger. Okay. I really love hugging. Uh-huh. And one final question. So you could go to any restaurant with your family. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. With your family, anywhere you want. Where would you go? This is your let's call it your last meal. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be morbid here, but you have one last meal. Where would you go? And what would you order?
I would do a plug for Egidio in town. I love that we can walk there together, sit outside. Pizza's always a good choice. How about you?
I think I would go up to A.B.&G and order everyone blackened salmon on top of arugula to eat what I have to eat every night, what I love. So, but, you are the Maya Angelou quote. You're it. Maya Angelou quote, of course, people are never going to remember what you said, and they won't. They're just not going to remember what you did, and they probably won't. But Jocelyn, they will remember forever and ever how you made them feel, and you made me feel great here today. But this is your specialty. Like anyone who works with you, they feel heard, they feel seen, and feel valued. And you have that gift. And so, you're here, you're doing something that I think is bigger than just a job. I think it's a mission. And, your expertise, your coaching is out there for people. Like if someone said to you right now, who's the best parenting coach you know? I mean, you're the GOAT, you're it. Who's someone who really could give me some advice on how I can deal with my family and deal with myself? You're the person, I would say. So I want to thank you so much for being here. And, don't forget to, look up Jocelyn. What's your website again?
ThriveParentCoaching.com.
ThriveParentCoaching.com. Okay. And one last like one dessert. Give me one little bite, like one little piece of key lime pie before we go. One little teeny little tidbit of, Jim, just don't forget to, with your kids.
Just love them, of course. How could it be anything else?
That's it. Just love them. Great.
Yeah.
So I'm Jim Stroker, Coach Jim Stroker, learning so much today. And I may even go into parenting coaching now that I know all this information. But you can find me on CoachJimStroker.com. And I'm out here to pep up, give a little spark or inspiration to any team that you're part of or want to be part of. And don't forget, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or all the other podcast platforms. And don't forget, follow me on the socials for the latest episode updates. Jocelyn, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
This is incredible. I'll high five you. I won't hug you here on this one, but thank you. All right.
Let's get you into the R Zone. Coach Jim Stroker has provided a bridge for inspiration and hope for people all over the world. Are you ready to transform your life and your leadership skills? Invite Coach Stroker to inspire your students or motivate your teams, offering personalized keynote speeches, dynamic workshops, inspirational life coaching, and comprehensive leadership training from Fortune 500 companies to students all over the country to nonprofits and individuals. Empower yourself to become the best version of you with Coach Jim Stroker. For speaking, workshops, training, or coaching, work with Jim Stroker. Visit CoachStroker.com to start your journey today. Let's get into the R Zone.
For more, follow Coach Jim Stroker on socials. And be sure to subscribe to the R Zone podcast, available on all major platforms, including Spotify and YouTube.
And don't forget to pick up a copy of Coach Jim Stroker's new book, Huddle Up, available now on Amazon.
This production was recorded at Ignite Creator Studios, Digital Media and Content Strategy. Visit IgniteCreatorStudios.com.